Hello there. In this video, we are going to learn how to solve or find solutions for inequalities. And as we've talked about before, the difference between inequalities and equations is that inequalities can have multiple solutions. So there are multiple numbers that we could substitute for x and still have this inequality stay true. So let's talk about this in our notes. Inequalities are solved in a similar way to equations with two major differences. Try that again. One difference is that equations have one solution and inequalities have multiple or many solutions. So when we are solving an inequality, the first step is to get the variable by itself. So just like with equations, our first step is going to get the variable by itself on one side of the inequality symbol. Our second step is going to be to check the order variable, symbol, and constant. This makes graphing easier. And we'll look at that in our examples. The third step is to graph the number on the number line. You're going to decide, number 4, you're going to decide if it's an opened or a closed-in circle. And then you're going to draw your arrow. So let's go ahead and look at a few examples. Here we have an example of an inequality. We know it's an inequality because it has an inequality symbol. So this symbol right here is not an equation, it's an inequality sign. Okay, so I'm going to put my line down here just like I would with an equation. I'm trying to get the variable by itself, so I'm going to put a box around it. And just like an equation, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm following the steps just like I do the equation. I am going to check the order, and I do see that the variable's on the left. That does make it easier to graph. And I'm going to keep going. So I'm going to undo that plus 5 by subtracting 5 from both sides. On the left, positive 5 and negative 5 cancel out. On the right, 17 minus 5 is equal to 12. And then I'm going to bring down my 3x. Now the difference here is the answer is going to be an inequality. So we're not going to use an equal sign as we go down. We're going to keep using that inequality sign to remind us that this problem has more than one solution. So our next step is to undo the multiplication. Again, we have 3x, so we want to undo that. So we're going to divide both sides by 3. And then x is going to be greater than or equal to the solution to 12 divided by 3, which is going to be 4. Now, so the answer is x is greater than or equal to 4. So this has multiple solutions. So our next step is we're going to circle the number on the number line. The number I got was a 4. So I'm going to circle that number. And I'm going to think about it. Is this an open or a filled in circle? This is going to be a filled in circle because it says x is greater than or equal to. So I'm going to make a circle and I'm going to fill it in. It says x is greater than or equal to 4, so I'm going to draw my arrow going to the right. Now that I've graphed possible solutions on the number line, I can list some of them. So one of the solutions we can see because of the closed circles, one of the possible solutions would be 4. Another solution you can see from the number line would be 5, but you can also think of many, many, many numbers, infinite numbers, in fact, that are going to be greater than or equal to 4. So I could even put 100. Let's look at a second example. Now notice the difference in this example. If you look to the example here on the right, I'm going to go ahead and put my line down the middle so I can keep my math organized. I'm going to put a box around that variable so that I can remember which side it's on. And there's a couple of things we could do here. We could check the order, or we could then change the order, or we can change the order at the end. I'm going to change the order at the end, and we'll talk about why when we get there. So we got the variable. We're going to get the variable by itself. So I'm going to look at what's done on the right side. I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. I'm going to undo that addition first. 7 minus 4 is 3. I'm still going to keep my inequality sign greater than. And then I'm going to bring down that x divided by 2. The plus 4 minus 4 cancels out. My next step is going to be to undo the division, just like we would with an equation, by multiplying both sides by 2. We're going to undo dividing by 2 by multiplying both sides by 2. So now what we have is 2 times 3, which is 6 on this side. And then on the other side, I can cancel that out. I have my x, and then of course this is an inequality, not an equation. So I can bring that inequality sign down. Now we could graph it at this point, but graphing is easier when you think about all the values that you're comparing x to all the values on the number line. So for this, I like to change the order so that I can better understand it. So I'm going to read it with the x. So if 6 is greater than x, that means x is going to be less than 6. So you notice I reverse the order. If I'm going to write it with the variable first, I need to reverse the order to keep the relationship the same. So for this inequality, I'm going to go ahead and now circle my number on the number line, the 6, and I'm going to determine whether this is an opened or a filled in circle. Because it says x must be less than 6, this is going to be an open circle. And I'm going to draw my arrow to the left, indicating that it's the numbers that are less than 6. So looking at my number line, I can come up with possible solutions. Now this time 6, if I were to write 6, 6 is not a solution because it's less than 6. So 6 would not be a possible solution. However, 5.5 would be a possible solution because it's less than 6. 3 is a possible solution. 0 is a possible solution. There are an infinite number of solutions because there are an infinite number of numbers that are less than 6. Okay, now we've learned not only how to graph, but also how to solve two-step inequalities.